I'll just give you the teaser.
Oh, okay.
All right. Sure. So old people have it the best. They can pretty much just fuck all the time.
I just want to hear about old people fucking, which is the thing I never thought I was going to say. But here I am saying it.
They fuck. And I'm so jealous. I cannot wait to be, like, really fucking old. And I say that because, like, everybody knows, like, somebody who's older than them. They're, like, old, or, like, the old person in the group. But everyone knows what really fucking old is. Like, that's a whole tier. Mm-hmm. And once you're there, like, you don't really care about anything anymore. So, like, nobody's really resentful of the really fucking old tier. But, oh, my God. I want to be really fucking old. He will remain nameless, but I spent some time in the last week. I'm going to try to be as vague as possible, and some things will be changed to protect the innocent. But I was talking to them about their mother.
Are my ears considered the innocent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing not innocent is the person
that you're speaking of.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, they're innocent. This sounds like they fucked old people. Look. So, like, I can imagine how difficult it would be to put, like, your parent or your grandparent in a retirement home, but it's just a breeding ground of just, it's a big fuck pit.
Yeah.
And
I can just see them, like, carting babies out by, like, the truckload.
Well, luckily...
the joy is, when we talk about really fucking old, we're beyond the point
menopause.
of babies.
Like, menopause was a lifetime ago.
Just, oof.
Like, really fucking old.
Really fucking old. But, so, like, they get to the point where they don't really know where they are, or, like, they say they have, like, Alzheimer's or dementia, but they just are, like, a fuck target. People fucking all the time. And I was hearing stories of walking in on their significant other who is in the retirement home. I'm trying super hard. But constantly in some kind of sexcapade. Like, walking in and just dudes beating off, like, right in front of them. Or, like, just a huge sex pit, like, a pile of people. And everyone knows what's going on. Like, mean, what do you do with them anymore? It's just applesauce and fucking.
That's a lot of aged nut. Jesus Christ.
It's just applesauce and fucking.
That's right.
I think we found the name of the episode.
It's just so good.
All right. Well, welcome to this week's episode of Hypothetically Speaking. We're rolling with it. My name is Tyler Malter. With me, as always, is
John Reed
and
pork chops and applesauce.
Sean Murphy. So this week we ask the question: if you could have a sixth sense, what would it be?
If I was an old person, the sense of touch.
That's one of the five. You already
but
get
a
that
heightened
one.
sense of touch.
Oh, okay. Super touch.
Yes.
So how does that work exactly?
Well, you feel everything you feel and what they feel.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe you saved that within like 3 seconds.
It's pretty good.
That was really good. Okay, so who would like to go first with their sixth sense?
Well, I totally screwed up the interpretation of the question again.
Did you?
Just...
What did you think it was?
So the way I interpreted it...
It can't be a power, you know.
No.
Or a sense to obtain a power.
Yeah, no, mine was just if you could heighten any one of your senses.
Why do you think that?
I don't know!
I feel like I should like read the verbatim the question.
I don't know!
Because it's something like if you could have one more sense, what would it be?
No, if you could have a sixth sense.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Dude, that's rough. Okay.
It's not good.
Well, what sense would you heighten? Because is it touch?
No, it wasn't touch.
Okay.
I had a hard time with it. I had a hard time with the question that no one else was even considering. But I wanted like super hearing. I really wanted like if it. Damn it! I feel so stupid now.
It's okay. We'll circle back around so you can have a real one.
Oh yeah, that's good. No, because like if any one of the senses could be heightened, like the other ones didn't make a whole lot of sense to me to really improve. Like I don't really think I'd want to smell better because like then I would smell like a lot of things that aren't great, a lot better. Sight was kind of a good idea. It was probably the closest, but hearing, like I'm a big audiophile. Like I really love like high quality caliber audio. Plus, it would allow me to like eavesdrop. I would be able to probably perform my job better. When you think of like mechanics and like mechanical things and trying to diagnose problems, that seemed good. And then I also felt like I could cheat a little bit and gain a better sense of balance because your ears are so important in balancing. So I thought
it's not you'd have better ears; it's you'd have better hearing.
Yeah, well I know,
so
but
you don't get to cheat. I'm just saying.
Damn it.
You could hear when people were having heart attacks or when like a fart was welling up inside someone.
Absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
you could really take that somewhere.
Well,
I want to be a safe
Just
cracker.
look over at Tyler and be
I
like,
would-
don't you do it.
No, I'd be a safe
You
cracker
know.
and I'd hear the
oh
mechanics.
yeah, no, that's a good use of that.
So.
That improved sense.
Am I even close to what the actual question is?
No, not really. But
Damn it.
I would use your heightened hearing for saving Jimmy Olsen when he's in the Middle East and I'm just floating above Earth thinking about what to do next. And,
You would be. Wait, you're hearing
So
like
you're
you
Superman.
float?
yeah, I'm Superman from the movie Batman v Superman.
Can I ask your D? I've been waiting my life to ask you that.
Only if you have a tattoo of my chest.
Why doesn't anybody?
ironic.
Wow.
Oh, it's got
Who
the
knew?
nipples and everything.
Why doesn't anybody like the one with Richard Pryor?
Okay.
Superman 3, isn't
Okay.
it? Where he's a hacker.
So
He's so gosh darn funny in that.
no. But off of the Superman topic, the actual question was if you could have a sixth sense, and in addition to the ones you already have, or in my case, lack with my eyesight,
More hearing.
well, a second set of hearing.
Yes.
Okay. We'll take it. So, John, what was your
Okay,
answer to the
so
question?
you know how well I had two. One of these is not the one that I'm going to go with. It was the ability to perceive more color than the normal human being could.
Mhm.
I've heard that some people can do that. They're called tetrachromats, but that would be like a personal thing. And
I feel like that's an enemy in Dungeons and Dragons.
right. I mean, well, either way, it's
Tetrachromats.
like it's something
Yeah.
that like only I would benefit from. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I
It
guess
seems
my other,
fitting
I guess
for
my,
most of your guys' decisions.
I guess most my other
What are
pick,
you saying, that we're selfish?
I don't-
What are you
my
getting
other
at?
pick is also kind of selfish too. But yeah, so I mean, if I were to like create art with it, you know, because I'm an artist, like I'm the only one who gets to benefit from the additional colors that I could see no one else could. I'd be like, oh, look at that like new color in there that I put. Someone else would think I was smoking crack or something. You
But
know?
flip that around, all the people that would be accidentally using those colors like wrong, and they wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Like, because they would be using a thing that they perceive.
I wonder
as
though
some
if I
color.
did have like the ability to see new colors, if like it would make beautiful artwork as we see it today ugly. To
That's
me.
what I'm trying to
You know what I
say.
mean?
Yeah. What if there's a downside?
I
What if
couldn't,
they
I
screwed
couldn't
it up?
see like other people's works the way they did.
Sure.
That's totally ugly.
It's like a
You know?
they like meant it to be solid blue, but it's all these like jacked up blue colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or some other weird not blue.
Yeah.
You would have a very bad problem with like looking at walls and stuff that are painted unevenly,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
which is like a super common thing, and we can't really discern the difference between
Or Karen.
two barely different shades. Sean, are you looking at all of the walls in the room right now?
Yeah, they're not. It's weird.
Okay. Anyway,
So my actual pick was the ability to perceive time differently. So not like an ability like Arrival, where I can go into the future and like pick up information and bring it back to my present. You know, like that would be cool. But because I looked at that more like a power than like a sense. So we've all been in situations where we're like in the classroom and it just felt like time was dragging on, or times when we're hanging out with our friends and time just flies by super fast. Well, I want the ability to put that perception onto myself. So like if I'm having a really good time, I can make it feel like this is really long and drawn out. Or if I'm in a situation where I'm like in a classroom and a teacher's lecturing and all I can do is stare at the clock, like time could go by super fast. You know, that would be my sense.
it's funny you bring that up because I've been thinking, I don't know why, but my brain, like almost on a daily basis, keeps going back to thinking about how time works
Mm-hmm.
and how it's hard to explain via podcast, but it's like a slinky if both ends of the slinky are super scrunched up, but then there's like that middle section that's a little bit more spread out and traveling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that in that you perceive the present as happening, and it's like it's a really long instance of itself, and then you have like the very near past that you remember in detail, and it's a longer instance than when you remember like 10 years ago, where you only have little slivers of time that you remember.
Right.
So it's like everything that has happened is extremely compressed into nothingness, and then there's like the little bit that you remember just in the past, but then even at the start of the sentence is now in the past, and the future is always scrunched up and compressed right in front of you. And it's like my mind just thinks of like that slinky just rolling across, like the spread out portion of the slinky, and it's like on a daily basis, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when you look into the future, the way it's also spread out and condensed is that like the closer it is to you, the more you're thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow or the
Right.
next day. but then like where it's super compressed, you're thinking about your 5, 10, 20 year mark. You know, you don't really try to plan 10,000 days in advance. You know, that's just
Right.
who does that.
So I know I'm not the only, like, the first one to think it, or the only one to think it, but I always have perceived time literally as perception. So, like, when, I don't remember where I read it, and I could be totally screwing it up, but I recall understanding that, like, memories as a child, you really can't remember anything that you would not have been able to explain or understand. Like, if you couldn't, like, sit down and write it down, I mean, I understand that, like, if you're, like, 4, you can't really write, but that level of an understanding of what's happening, you tend to not remember it or remember it correctly. So I always understood that, like, especially, and maybe it's just because of our age, but, like, when you were to recall back to events as a child, which is still kind of within your range of memory, you're really only able to remember, like, the vivid things. Like, you can't remember anything vaguely, right? So it's like it picks and chooses everything. So when I am in a situation where I do want time to move slowly, I will just focus on every detail and I will repeat it to myself. So, like, a great example was a concert I went to, and I realized partway through it I was super drunk, and it was like a concert I've always wanted to go to. I was really excited. For like 20 years I've been wanting to see this guy, and I realized partway through that I'm plastered, and, like, I don't even remember the first half of the set. So, like, I stopped myself and was just, like, I was repeating to myself, like, the color of a shirt, the color of, like, what the drum set was, and all these things. And it did indeed help me, not first focus and sort of sober, but it allowed me to sort of understand time a little, slow it down, basically.
Yeah, I
So
mean, there's times when, like, I'm working on a painting, and I'll feel like I've gotten really far in the painting, and I'll look up, and only an hour's passed, and I'm like, God, I can't work anymore on this. I'm super, like, drained already. I'll play a video game and feel like I've done 5 minutes of work and look up at the clock and I'm 5 hours in and be like, what the hell? You know, like, so, like, that time, the way time works around where my mind is doing different things. Like, I don't understand, like, why it does that, but if I could have a sixth sense, I'd want the ability to be able to control that, so that when I'm actually painting, I feel like 5 hours can go by and I've finished the painting and be like, dang, that was easy, you know? Or, like, play a video game and be like, wow, I really don't want to be, like, sucked into this video game, so I'm going to make it feel like it's really boring and drug out. That way I'm only doing just a little bit and I get out, you know, and be more productive with my day.
Well, the last thought I wanted to make on the perception statement was that I feel like time flies faster as we get older because we're more experienced. Like, you take things for granted. Like, you don't really take time to sit there and soak in the details of something, because you're not really learning. You're not at this phase where you're, like, absorbing and sort of processing everything. So maybe you could translate that a lot to your thought of, like, doing something that you're of a strong understanding of, or you take for granted.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so, and kind of, like, that makes me really wish that I had thought of perfect memory as a sixth sense, because there's, like, a guy that was on, I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres or something. I don't know. But he had, or she, I don't even remember. This would have been perfect to have had that sixth sense. They had perfect memory, and they could remember everything, like, from age 2 or something like that. Like, there was a specific day that they just started remembering everything, and they can recall, like, they can look at a day on the calendar and, like, tell you what they were doing that day. That's which crazy. Is just, like, mind-blowing. And I want to say it's a woman now that I'm thinking more about it, but they're, like, part of these, like, crazy memory studies, and they've taken, like, EKGs of her every, like, month for the past 5 or 6 years, you know, and, like, they're really trying to study how she has the ability and, like, all the synapses in her brain to retain that much raw knowledge of what was going on around her.
And it's amazing, like, how you would be able to measure that, because if I were to ask her, like, okay, what did you do when you were 10 years old on this day at this time, and for her to be able to tell me that, like, how can I measure, like, the truth of that? You know, she could just be really good at coming up with, like, a lie and just make it sound really, really truthful. So how do I know? But if it got to a point where I could record her every single day for 20 years and then ask her, what did you do 20 years ago on the day that, like, you were, like, 10 days in to filming whatever at this hour, and she'd tell me, I'd be like, wow.
Well, a lot of times they'll use just historical knowledge. Like, if they'll research or understand a lot, and then you can say, like, what important thing happened on this day, and they just it's like a Rolodex of
it reminds me of, we're like going off on this tangent, but I'm totally happy with it. I was listening to the podcast Serial. Have you guys listened to Serial?
No.
But you've been trying to get me to.
It's a fantastic. It's 10 episodes, 10 hours. It's an interview series, trying to find out whether this guy who committed a crime and murdered his girlfriend in high school is guilty of it. So they interview all of the people involved with the crime when it happened in 1999. But the very first episode, the first 10 minutes, starts off talking about, like, can you remember what you had for breakfast 9 days ago? Which most people would be like, no. And then they'd think hard about it.
Coffee.
Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. But but if you were like, okay, when it rained 10 days ago, you now have additional details and you can recall better that day. But it talks about the reason it's relevant is because they asked high school students what happened 20-something days ago on this specific day as to whether this guy was at the library, which he claims he's at, or if he was across town murdering his girlfriend. So that's like the beginning of this podcast, but the narrator of it really discusses like memory and the little things that if you have a specific detail, so if you say, what was your 10th birthday like? You can probably recall your 10th birthday because it's a really big event in your life. But then, like, can you recall what happened exactly 1 week after your 10th birthday? You probably not because there isn't that significant moment, which I think is really cool. But that would be something that can be remedied by that sixth sense.
But then you're going to always remember the terrible things, too.
Absolutely.
Like every time that you've anything.
It'd probably help be more cautious, but I feel like I'd also be more jaded. And like every single tiny little betrayal is then exploded out into an actual large event and stuff like that.
Or maybe the opposite, actually. I mean, if you have more to pull from for examples of a situation, then it sort of becomes less of a significance, right? You know.
Sure. If I can remember every single time a person has done something wrong, I could also remember all the times that they did stuff right, too, and have a better feel. Yeah. So like a perfect memory would be really cool. When I heard the topic 2 days ago, and I totally thought about it for the full 2 days, flight comes to mind, and not necessarily flight like Superman flight, but the ability to control like gravity's effect on you, or
as a superpower.
Not as a superpower, as a sixth sense.
What the hell is a sixth sense then?
But like, and that's where we have to. I can't pick flight, but like that was my go-to was the ability not necessarily to fly, but to defy gravity in a small way. So you know, it's like just the ability to not have as much gravity pull on you, so you could theoretically float 5, 6, 7 feet in the air, or you could fly 100 feet in the air, but you wouldn't have that forward momentum of any kind. So I thought about that, but then I started thinking about
dead people.
Yeah, of course.
Jeez.
So, but then I started thinking about like what are senses, and senses are ways to help perception, like so that you can perceive things going on around you. So it's all about awareness and being able to tell the goings on. So when I started thinking about that, the one thing that came to mind would be like the ability to read other people's minds. And I feel like that's like you could ground that a little bit with the ability to like perfectly read people's faces.
So here's my addition to that. In the military, one of the things that I was trained to do was to read body language.
Right.
And that way you can tell. So like I've seen you enough times. I know what your baseline is. I know like when you're in a good mood, when you're in a bad mood, when you're hungry, when you're not, or just things like that. So your sense could be to like ultra perceive those things, like in facial recognition. So you could like pick up when a person's dilate or constrict, or when their ears move, or when their face becomes flushed, or when they move their nose. And it's not just things like that you just happen to pick up, because you really have to like pay attention to someone to get that, and you have to be close enough. But like you could, with that sense, you could totally be like meet a brand new person and be like, he's lying.
See, and that's where it goes to is
heightened perception.
Yeah, you need to have, because all of your senses are just part of how you perceive the world around you. So what would help you in that, and it would be one of the things that we lack, is like perfect communication of human interaction. So you could, like, that's where my sixth sense idea is to have perfect perception of another individual. And you could make it really easy by saying, I can read people's minds, and then I would know exactly what they're thinking at any given moment. But that's not how our senses work, necessarily. So it would be something that I would have to interpret, which is where you have colorblindness, which John and I both have, and in that you have misinterpretations of the world around you that we all perceive together. So with that, it would be reading people. Yeah. Sometimes you read them wrong, just like sometimes you mishear things or you see things differently. So I feel like that would be a very natural sixth sense to have, and it'd be very grounded in how to read people's facial expressions or body language and stuff like that. And it brings up the show Lie to Me, which is exactly about that. It's just a guy reading people's faces and micro expressions and seeing.
You would never fall victim to resting bitch face, because you would be able to tell whether they were totally relaxed in that face or they were making that face.
Is it resting bitch face, right? Or is it pissed off bitch face?
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So that is what my sixth sense would be.
I actually have one now.
Do you?
Good job, Sean.
Okay.
I super do. And so when I heard this and thought about it accurately 2 days ago, and I think it's a fresh idea. My sixth sense would be statistical probable advantage. So what I mean by that is that my heightened perception would allow me, it's almost like an internal measurement, internal beat, internal clock. Think like Domino, the superhero. I would be able to perceive probabilities and possible outcomes at a rhythm that would actually be natural. Like, so instead of of course, I think anybody with time could still accomplish the same task, but it would be so natural that it would be more like a sense, like a spider sense, so to speak. So I feel like having that kind of ability to measure and calculate at such a rapid speed would have just a ton of application and capability.
What was the name of that movie?
You make your own luck.
Took the pill.
Limitless.
There limitless. You go. You'd be limitless, man.
So sort of like that, yeah. So it just.
So how would you use that in like a day-to-day situation?
Well, I think that there'd be a lot of different occupational capabilities. Outside of gambling, I mean, gambling is like very basic in its value, but like,
I mean, we could do that today. Is like, think about something and the statistical probabilities of it happening.
Sure, but you could like a great example to my mind would be something like the Blue Angels. So the Blue Angels are operating like they're traveling at death-defying speeds at like feet away from each other, or race car driving, or even something as simple as being like a doctor. Because you would just be able to
a surgeon
measure rhythm and be able to hyper perceive like how things are going, and like you basically your ability to recall and possible outcomes and capabilities, just it'd be cool.
How would you use it in your
how would I use it?
Yeah.
Well, God,
like if you had this ability, what would change about your day?
I think that I would just use it to push my luck.
Yep. That's what I was looking for. It's exactly what I would do.
What are the chances I'll make it through this red light?
Yep.
Push my luck. I would push my luck with everything, and I think it's if the more you know me, I think it's not that surprising that would be a choice I would make. I'm really I'm always kind of perceived as a pretty lucky guy anyway, and my mind works in that way. Like I'm always just it's just fast, like rotating through possibilities and outcomes. So it's really more of that, and I just think that would be awesome.
No, I would 100% like, what are the chances of me getting pulled over if I run this red light? What are the chances of an accident happening? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I would use it every day for just getting places faster, getting better, blah, 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 on whatever, like.
Well, think about just and being thrill seeking. If I wanted to go base jumping or wingsuit gliding, like I would have, even though I've never done it before.
Yeah.
Like I would be able to, with this heightened perception, be able to calculate how to do it as accurately as possible. Yep. So things that come naturally, like everything that comes naturally, I would be good at.
Yeah. Because you'd have real time optimization of yourself.
That's right.
And the things around you.
Which would also lead to like I would never try to overextend myself. I feel like it would be hard to overextend myself.
Now, I'm going to ask kind of a probing question. I'm kind of delving into you personally. Are you doing it just so you can be better at pinball?
Oh man, pinball would be fantastic.
Right, you would always hit the ball at the perfect moment. Absolutely, you could even be deaf, dumb, and blind.
Yep.
And you'd be
Freaky
able to
flipper
do-
fingers.
Yeah. So
Tusk.
is that the real root of your thinking here is pinball?
You know, but all joking aside, though, I think that's why I've gravitated towards pinball, is because that is something that, like, that's just how my mind works.
Mm.
So I appreciate pinball for that notion, you know.
Sure.
That talent. You have
It's
to
not
have.
business acumen. It's not prize fight betting. It's not
Pinball.
getting away from the law. It's pinball playing.
Ding ding ding. ding, 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 ding. All right. Well, what else? Do you guys have anything else on Sixth Senses?
I don't know, but time has been dragging on, and I really wish I had my sense right now to make this get by pretty quick.
Oh,
Because-
dude.
Yeah.
I got one last thing I do for my sense.
Okay.
I want to be able to tell the paternity of
Oh,
babies.
that's good.
So that I
Congrats on your girl.
no, not the gender. Like, I want to be able to say
paternity.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking what I
Sure.
would call the Maury factor.
Absolutely.
And I want to be that guy. Like, I want to start my own show where, like, I don't even have to pay the guy who comes out, and it's like absolutely.
I would just start a YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
where I walked up and I would just like, sir, I am so happy that you're stepping into this woman and her child's life like this.
So good.
It's
You
fantastic.
would be like the new Maori, dude. Like,
Yeah, that's what he's saying. The Maury effect.
Yeah.
Like you just
they could
you
just
get
come
your
in,
own
sit
TV
down,
show.
and be like, "You are the father."
Yeah.
Bam, and then move on.
Here's how I'm
And
going
the
to
next
use it,
couple
though.
comes in.
Show's going to be called I Know. And what it is, I'm not going to tell them the paternity, but I'm going to know. So I'm just going to walk in and be like, yeah, I know. And then leave. That's it.
In the case of so and so,
I know.
I know. Then you just walk out of the room.
But nobody will ever know I have it.
Yeah.
But I know.
Yep. It's pretty good. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it this week for us at Hypothetically Speaking.
I know.
Thank you. You can find me on Twitter at TJMalt421. You can find John
At John Reed Art.
and you can find Sean at
Chuck Bonsai 1.
Awesome. So we will catch you next time.
Old people, keep on fucking.
See ya.
Hypothetically Speaking is a Table Night production. I can't believe those assholes paid me $5 just for that.